Welcome back to another episode of our Wyckoff crypto discussion. As usual, today we will study the crypto market through the lens of the Wyckoff method. This information is for educational purpose only and is not an investment recommendation. Please stop the video and read the disclaimer. This week has started with a shakeout action on cryptos. The selling has affected the laggards, like Bitcoin, which is still testing the supply emerged on Sunday, while many leadership assets have recovered from the low and are currently retesting the supply at the all-time highs. Crypto traders are not new to deep shakeouts. This is an environment where the combo between low liquidity and a very high number of leveraged accounts can produce this deep correction followed by aggressive recovery, or at least a short period of consolidation. Every time we see a shakeout, our first goal is to understand the meaning of the price action in the context of the bigger price cycle. What do we see here? The S&P is in the uptrend, and we are currently in a short-term consolidation after many consecutive positive days. PNF counts suggest higher targets for the S&P, and this looks like a stepping stone reaccumulation range. And Bruce and Roman have discussed their targets in yesterday's Wyckoff market discussion, which this week is available for free on our YouTube channel. The Nasdaq index is in a very interesting position. If we hold here, the current price action could be a baking up action in the context of a much larger consolidation started in late January. So short-term consolidations in the context of bigger bullish structures. Let's study crypto assets now. Selling has come into the market on Sunday on many assets. I'm showing here Bitcoin and Ethereum. In both cases, we see a quick sell-off in just one ominous bar with a close in the middle. And there are many speculations about the nature of these shakeouts, but as Jesse Livermore used to say, we will know the news always after the fact. Our role is to focus on the most reliable data feed, the chart. That close on very high volume suggests the presence of bias. What happens next? Leadership assets like Ethereum, that we have discussed several times in the last few weeks, continue to outperform, and after a quick test, we are making higher lows and higher highs, while laggards like Bitcoin are still testing the supply at the lows. So the shakeout has not changed our view of the structure of the market. After such a quick price action, indeed we want to see at least some consolidation to absorb the supply, and we will analyze several indexes today as usual. And we have to be aware that a period of consolidation in the market always follow this kind of fast shakeouts. Speculative assets like crypto love trading days in the stock indexes, so short-term traders should time their tactics with the overall market. And they would look at the price action of the Nasdaq as an important reference. Your remarks on this chart, Roman?
All right. Well, yeah, there is a lot of bearish sentiment about this. What did it achieve? Right? So I'm having so many conversations. Everybody's so concerned. I would say, judge the market by its own action, meaning that if we are testing right now, wait for the resolution of this test. So this week, I spent almost each day discussing Bitcoin. Just because of this bearish sentiment. And for those of you who are feeling hit, this usually means you might be a little bit overexposed. So just an idea for you guys to think about. But the nature of the lower highs and the lower lows on the test, might suggest, as Alessia has said, either more of the consolidation type of action before it starts going up, or even like in this case right here, we had a lower low retest and then the higher low test. In this case, we had lower lows right here and then a higher low. So anything is possible here, but the long-term trend is still up. There is no violation of the long-term trend. So if you're a long-term investor, you're still holding. If you're a short-term swing trader, then you're positioning yourself where? In Ethereum, in crypto assets like this one. Why? Because we see the strength on the way up, and then we see the strength during the shakeout, and not substantial supplies coming in. So these are the type of assets that you want to position yourself in, while meanwhile you still hold in Bitcoin. And there are quite a few scenarios. We'll discuss those later on in this video as to what Bitcoin can do. Also, it's kind of a little bit funny how you positioned here the S&P and NASDAQ. I would say that, NASDAQ is definitely somewhat weaker than S&P. S&P is stronger, and then Ethereum is stronger, and Bitcoin is weaker relative to Ethereum. So is there some kind of, connection between these two or four that you could, talk about a little bit?
Yes, I really like to show this connection between different asset classes because when I trade, generally I look for the Nasdaq. I always look at the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq in general growth indexes give me that sense of what's going on the speculative sentiment of the market. And Roman, what do you think about this strategy?
I love it, right? Because NASDAQ has a lot of growth stocks, a lot of high flyers. So there's a lot of speculation going on in that space. And obviously, crypto space is also very, very speculative. So, and we kind of see this, Alessia, like, a move to the upside, then a shakeout, which is coinciding with NASDAQ, a rotational reaction that we've just had, test, and then a really good rally in NASDAQ, and you kind of see it also in the leading crypto assets. So yeah, absolutely love it.
Here are the main crypto indexes. So it's very hard to predict shakeouts. So kudos to all the members of our community, especially intraday traders, that were reporting their concern for high funding rates.
Ha!
Yeah.
That's a sarcastic ha. Because, I mean, no, all right, yeah, kudos to all of you who predicted this. All right.
Many intraday traders generally look for funding rates and other parameters, which I think it's a good strategy for traders that are using perpetual futures, not for the bias of the market, which should be always in line with tape reading and Wyckoff analysis, but at least to modulate your exposure to the market. But as usual, let's look at the main crypto indexes. The question is, look at the structural market. What is changing here? So many members of our community are really interested in the low cap index. What's going on there? The shakeout has not broken the most significant support level yet. So this is a change of behavior, still not a change of character. It's not up a big correction, which is suggesting further consolidation. So in this context, it's extremely important to focus on the quality of the recovery, the testing action that follows the shakeouts. What do we see here? Testing action as lower lows or higher lows. Sudden recovery with aggressive demand on lackluster rallies. These are the kind of observations that really can help us to understand the overall context of the market. And I think that these are all big consolidation structure. I really like the quick recovery on the mid-cap index, followed by this reaction, small spreads. The fact that large caps are still making higher lows is constructive, I think, but I really love the DeFi index because all the indexes in this chart are trying to absorb the supply after a significant move. And this consolidation can be very quick or take more time, while the DeFi index is already trying to break this long-term consolidation. So your remarks on these four charts, Roman.
Well, Alessio, I absolutely love your idea about how DeFi is well positioned right now to advance. That's number one, and also to potentially outperform. And usually the structure like this is going to be a little bit tricky. We come out of phase C, we go into a minor sign of strength, then a major sign of strength, and then what happens next? Well, it looks like a change of behavior, which it is, and it has all of the characteristics of the shakeout: increased volume signature, increased spread, increased velocity, momentum, commitment below intermediate short-term support levels, but creating a higher low in what potentially, after the major sign of strength, could be interpreted as phase D, and therefore we would label this as a last point of support. And usually these type of structures that are kind of becoming leaders on the major sign of strength and then having a shakeout, they usually will have a shakeout just based on market activity. When we go into the history of the market, check out probably one of the best examples that I could give you is Apple in 2000, 2001. So that was producing a shakeout to the very much long-term trading range into even the late 80s, only because the market was driving down everything. The gravity of the market is usually going to take down even the best behaving, outperforming assets. And this is what we're seeing with the DeFi. But in comparison to other indices, as Alessia has said, this seems to be an uptrend, change of behavior, consolidation. Uptrend, change of behavior, and then at least at the minimum, some kind of consolidation, right? So we don't have the big cause. Here we have a big cause, and then we have elements of outperformance. So yeah, absolutely, I think Alessio is spot on with the DeFi.
So here you can see the relative strength of the DeFi against Bitcoin. So basically, I think it's compelling to see how Bitcoin is like breaking that support level, while this beautiful shakeout in phase D of the DeFi index really tell us something about the urgency of institutions that are buying on the way down, because there's buying there on that support level. So I think that this shakeout will be very difficult for Wyckoffian that are beginners in the space, because generally we associate shakeout to phase C, but shakeout are possible in phase D according to different market conditions, or in this case, really nasty market conditions due to crypto space in general. But what happens after these price actions? Generally, we see a very strong recovery after some consolidation, and this could be just the first leg of a more significant uptrend. Roman, your remarks?
Yeah, well, I kind of analyzed already DeFi on the previous slide. Again, please notice the weakness in Bitcoin relative to DeFi. As Alessia has said, this was very significant. Then the structural definition of the shakeout in phase D based on the market conditions, like an idea here. And then also just note how we're recovering, right? So the high of the shakeout bar, this is the level that we would want to watch. And we're already seeing the strength in the DeFi as the price approaches that level.
And this is the really big picture of the DeFi index. So you can see here a lot of accumulation on the way up. Then we enter this huge consolidation, because few months of consolidation in the crypto space are generally can create a big causality. And I was checking my PNF counts for the DeFi index, and there's a potential to go even to $50,000 for the index. So that's very interesting. Of course, we have to see at least another, I would prefer to see another retest of the eye here for maybe a flat consolidation. That would be fantastic. But the overall chart is impressive here, Roman.
Yeah, I really love the flatness of the structure, non-participation when everything was going up, outperformance in this area right here, which suggests that I'm ready to go, both structurally and based on the outperformance. And also coming in volume signature, because you always have to question, if the volume comes in so much, what is the result of this effort coming in? And we are holding much better than anything else. So this means that there is buying behind this, and by the size of this volume, we definitely it's suggestive of the institutional buying rather than weak hands buying. So and the target, Alessio, of 50K is very, very attractive. So now my question, I have two questions for you. What's in the DeFi index? What kind of coins we have there? And are they on Kraken?
Yes, you can find many assets on Kraken. So I think in next week we'll start to look for study many of these candidates. So don't worry, man.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I should
So
be
here we
opening an
see,
account on other exchanges too.
for sure, for sure. So here we see Ethereum, which is leading the market to new highs, and the weekly chart is absolutely compelling. So we see prices making high highs and high lows on decreasing volume signature, and this whole price action looks like a sign of strength over the prior highs, which is a definition that Roman is using a lot in WTC calls. And the daily chart is very interesting because I think it's very tricky right now to look for continuation of this chart, Roman. I was thinking the best opportunity to add Ethereum maybe would be like a flat correction, like a few days of flat consolidation. That would be really a nice point of entry, because maybe that right now betting on the continuation could be a bit risky for intraday traders. But long-term campaigns is still on, and I think it's a beautiful chart, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just were discussing this yesterday in the WMD class, and I was showing on gold the pattern of overcoming the all-time high. And Alessia, I just want to ask you, is this the all-time high here in 2018?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So usually when we have a consolidation, like an accumulation, and then we have a sign of strength, we are overcoming the resistance, and we would say this is a sign of strength, and then the backing up action. And from here we have an uptrend. So kind of the same idea, same logic, but overcoming the all-time high, there are a couple of elements here which are very interesting. First of all, the ability progressively to show closes above this all-time high suggests that we are in a sign of strength over the all-time high. So this is the distinction that I want to bring to our body of knowledge. And then after that, a backing up action, which is a backing up action not for the original trading range or any other trading ranges, but more about a backup after that sign of strength over that all-time high. And usually, it's a very natural place for the supply to come, because this is an all-time high. So a lot of traders are going to be betting on some kind of at least mean reversion at this point. And then if it holds, then we would be continuing with the move to the upside. Just want you to guys remember this concept. Okay, very beautiful chart, Alyssa.
It's leadership. And this is not leadership. So Bitcoin, I know that many traders are trading Bitcoin on the intraday, so it's important at least to review this asset. And Roman, how many times have you discussed this chart during this week?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, like since Saturday, I was hoping for a very slow weekend for myself, not looking at the market, and then boom, this shakeout happens. But it's not just the price action, right? It's not just the price action. It's just how people react to this. So maybe, Alessia, let me pose a question as a discussion here. What did you think about the sentiment after this shakeout?
The sentiment was really, really bad. And I've seen not just in our group, but in general on Twitter, the social media, that I really don't like to look at social media, but sometimes they really deliver you that sentiment of the market, and the sentiment was terrible, terrible.
And you could kind of, the work with the sentiment could be very useful. And social media from that perspective actually is a very unique tool, because you literally could understand what the sentiment of the crowd is, but you have to extract it at the points of maximum pain or at the points of maximum greed, right? So something like this, and then it could be very useful. But for our people in the Discord and just Wyckoff fans, I think the key for us here is just to understand what is the result of a specific action. So how would you describe in very simplistic terms, Alessio, what is the result of the shakeout?
Well, a shakeout with the close in the middle, so there's a lot of buying there. We have this kind of intraday penetration of the previous support, which is significant. I was meaning the local support that we have right there on mid-April, and now the testing action. The testing action, Bitcoin and generally laggard assets, tends to be more bearish than other assets. So, for example, we see a lot of times in this chart lower lows, slightly lower lows after the first selling.
Is there a specific reason for that, Alessio, I wonder?
Just because it's the result of comparative weakness against other assets, Roman. So just that concept. And since Bitcoin is weaker than the rest of the altcoin market, we generally expect this kind of price action to develop. And so I think that the main idea is, if you want to be very accurate on the price action, on the Wyckoff concept, think of relative strength and weakness, because they are very, very important.
Yeah, and I want to come back really briefly to the sentiment, because we want you guys to be better than you are right now. So therefore, we're trying to give you some knowledge that we have shortcuts. So obviously, look at the sentiment at the very extreme points and be contrarian there. That's number one. Secondly, understand your own sentiment and compare that to the truth of the chart. And I think, this would be a very useful exercise in terms of the awareness of how you think about what's going on and what reality actually is.
So Uniswap, beautiful chart. We have reviewed Uniswap last week, and I've bought my position around $27. So I just want to show you that it's painful to see that kind of shakeout action, no doubt. But what's the structure of the market here for your long-term campaigns? Basically, nothing has changed. So now we are basically at the all-time, almost near the all-time high, and I think that for intraday traders, this asset is very, very interesting, because you can really switch between the support and the resistance. But this is also a big candidate for campaigning. Roman?
Yeah, we both in this position kind of opened it somewhere here almost at the same time. There is a little bit of the supply coming in on this bar at the area where it is supposed to occur. So, that's to be expected. Shakeout just based on market conditions, quick recovery, and we are well above the high of the shakeout bar itself. Supply comes in on this second bar for sure, but not as much as before. So it's being consumed and absorbed really quickly, and we have a continuation. We actually were discussing this before the recording, so Alessio, I think I might agree with you, that we might have, a little bit more of the consolidation before we go up, just because some supply is showing up. But my question to you in the context of this upsloping structure is, now that we had this shakeout, I'm starting to think that maybe the true phase C is somewhere here. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. So it happens sometimes to be early in our campaigns, but this looks like a phase C.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, and looks very, very good. I wonder what's the PNF target here for this next move up.
Yes, we'll discuss the PNF next week. So
sounds great.
So let's discuss another asset that we have reviewed last week, Chairlink. I think it's important to show that our long-term campaigns are still there. So basically, that shakeout action is very scary, especially if you are watching your portfolio in real time. But look what happens after just a couple of days. We have a strong recovery, and this big structure is leading us to higher prices. So your max on this chart, Roman.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, like, look at the long-term causality since September of last year, and look at the shakeout there at the end. Does this remind you guys anything of what has just happened?
And Roman, that shakeout happened during the holidays. That was
low liquidity.
Christmas.
Yeah, low
Yes,
liquidity.
Christmas shakeout. So a special gift for campaigners to add to their position.
Yeah. Yeah, this is amazing. But that's the nature of this, of this asset class, right? So you are going to have those type of drops where somebody, just drops everything, and it produces in the low liquidity, that type of look. So you should be aware of this. That's number one. You should be aware of the algorithm as to how you're going to deal with this, right? So by the algorithm, I mean, okay, well, what should come next? If this is action, then we should have a test, and then we should have a confirmation. And Alessio, it seems to me that in this area right here, not only the recovery is just so dramatically different from Bitcoin, the test is at the higher level, and I think that we are experiencing some kind of confirmation already.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Roman.
Okay, yeah, so another leader behind the Ethereum, which is very, very attractive at this point. Okay, I think we are done for today. Alessio, your final thoughts and comments?
A lot of fear and greed this week, but I think that we have all the tools to analyze the market in a very objective way.
Sounds great. Well, thank you guys so much, and until next week.